Welcome to our webinar today on targeted training. New technology enables new best practice and reduces costs. Today's webinar will cover this topic in depth, and I think most important, we'll share a demonstration of the technology. We'll overview our credibility as presenters, we'll talk about the challenge and the opportunity, we'll share a view towards the solution as it exists for major enterprise applications such as SAP, Siebel, PeopleSoft, and Salesforce, what I call the big mission-critical ERP and CRM in your organizations. We'll give insight into the financial rewards, which are strong, and once again, we'll circle through a technology demonstration. So just a teeny bit about us. We're a leader in user experience management. NOAA has licensed over 20% of the Fortune 50 and hundreds of global customers, and brings our technology, user experience management, to mission-critical ERP and CRM applications. And ultimately, this technology frames benefits for our customers that enable them to increase their performance and effectiveness and save substantial amounts of money while doing so. Today, if you look at that 20% of the Fortune 50, we're just about at the edge of 20% of the Fortune 100 we expect to cross over perhaps in the next few months. So there are many large customers like you that have licensed this technology and that have been able to perhaps find benefit and utility. The challenge and the opportunity focuses today on targeted training. Many large companies routinely spend millions on education on an annual basis, especially around mission-critical ERP and CRM. And I think we all know that structuring a curriculum, targeting the need, and then assessing results is hit or miss. Most companies use the same curriculum time and time again, and they're often stymied by custom transactions that come in with each new release, some of which may not be well designed, and all this creates problems for the education team and their user community. Visibility to problems is even more difficult. If you can't see it, you can't fix it. If you can't measure it, how can you improve it? And so understanding of the areas in which users need better traction is provided anecdotally, perhaps from the IT service desk. Some customers would argue, respectfully submitted, that it's very detailed. The IT service desk understands user issues. But truth be known, they only see perhaps 1 in 8 of the user errors out there in the community, and maybe don't frame it in a way that it can benefit the training and education team. So they're not seeing all the data. And truth be known, too, is that most of the feedback doesn't come in a carefully measured way. It comes back to the CIO or the Center of Excellence from a line of business vice president that's frustrated. I'm just, order to cash is taking too long, we're having problems, and I may not close the revenue I need to close this quarter because my users are having trouble with the system. And all metrics aside, when that statement is made, it carries a lot of weight and affects what we have, the issues we have to solve. New technology now has enabled new best practices which change everything. And this technology can leverage itself across major enterprise apps such as SAP, major Oracle applications, and Salesforce Sales Cloud. So we should take a closer look at this. To step back 1,000 feet to frame exactly what is this new technology and then how can it obviously impact training, we need to look at what user experience management really does for customers. Everything in the IT data center, every single report that CIO looks at is pretty much focused on the infrastructure. It's the networks and the computers and the processors and the response time they think they're delivering on average someplace out there to that user world. User experience management takes a view from the desktop that's different. Not only does it look at all the performance a user receives and the errors that are happening in their major enterprise apps, but it also looks at the user's performance. It is the first technology to completely understand, as NOAA has implemented it, exactly what errors the user experiences and exactly the workflow that they were going through when that happened. And it presents new dashboards and new data that CIOs, education teams, line of business, no one has seen before. It's new. To frame it differently, if I asked a CIO or I asked a major line of business exec, how much user error do you have in your day-to-day operations? How much system error do you have? The numbers would be more like 30 or 40 or 50% allocated to one or the other with the remainder left over. And in fact, when we use our technology to measure our account installations when we first install, we find that, on average, roughly 8% of the error is system error. And what that tells us is that the other 91 some odd percent is user error. And that's a somewhat disturbing new metric that has never been visible before. Without this technology, you cannot have visibility to that metric. And the data is now framed by analytics so that you can see where the errors are happening, why are they happening, in what portions of transactions and business process are they happening. You can really see everything, by office, by user, by severity. And analytics makes it all visible and starts to share a view to the enterprise that you didn't have. Now that you have this visibility, you can start to think about the problem differently. So let's look at this again from basic point of view. So user experience management technology from NOAA monitors the user activity and measures it in terms of all user error and the workflow that goes with it. We see everything, and then the analytics aggregates that performance and highlights areas of opportunity. We can see what the top 10 user errors are. We can see when you roll out a new release at a change management event how that changes. We can see by screen, by module, everything about user error, where it's happening. We can use LDAP parameters to turn the view, tell me about the Chicago office. Or with this new release, tell me about the top 5 user errors for people with the title director or vice president. The possibilities are almost infinite, and that visibility and data now lets us take action that training departments were not able to take. There's a lot of data in the system, and we'll share a view towards some of the dashboards and you'll get a sense of what's possible. And it's highly automated to make the next actionable step from that data to remediation as easy for you as possible. So let's look at the issue for education and training teams and better understand user performance. The first use case, I think, is at the simplest point of view to just identify crisply and clearly and target training requirements. This customer pain point in this slide has been at NOAA for many years because it hasn't changed much. We train everyone the same way, the same content, the same frequency, and the same refreshers. We don't understand the relative proficiency of users, nor do we clearly understand the business process problem areas. We get anecdotal information from the IT service desk, but we just don't know where the issues are. And when we start to get a sense of those issues, a new release comes out, lots of new custom transactions, and the whole thing gets turned upside down again. NOAA EPM analytics allows you to precisely see by proficiency, course content, where you need to make changes to address top problems by geography, by role, by job title, and to understand what those issues are. Often the training and education team can now share this back to perhaps IT and application development to fix some of the custom transactions that may be very poorly designed. This is a huge change. New technology has now enabled differences in best practice because we're not guessing about the problem areas. They are precisely measured. Every single error message that, for example, SAP CRM would return to that screen by that user by time frame we've captured, and you can look at the workflow in any given moment of time to understand it. Use case 2 now becomes how can you optimize training delivery. So there are many different training methods, from e-learning to computer-based training to instructor-led training, and follow-on remediation techniques like special changes to a customized portal. And now you can actually see how these things impact the problems you have crisply and clearly identified. You know where the issues are, you know where the pain points are, and so how effective can you be in doing that? And NOAA EPM now lets you measure the effectiveness of how training is impacting the user community. And again, this is something new, something that truly has not been measurable before in any accurate or significant way. Pain point number 3, of course, is how have we done over time? We really know less over time than we knew at the time of the course training, but we have a vague sense of effectiveness. It really rolls back to the IT service desk and anecdotal information. we can see for the class of 2013 May that you just trained, how those people perform over time, let's say by their job role and geographic location, versus people you trained a year ago using different techniques or different technology. You can compare everything. It's very common to use analytics to frame a baseline to show, compare this to that, or before and after. So not only can you understand the problem set, train to it, and see the effectiveness of the training delivery method, but now you can start to see over time frames, comparative views towards success or comparative views towards where you failed. And so this is a powerful change to the way training and education can approach the problem. You now have visibility across the board, and the team is now enabled to do things they could never do before. Now, in terms of in your organization, where are the champions that you want to find, the people that can really pick up this ball and run with it? I think it's exactly who you suspect. Within IT, oftentimes there's leadership for training and education. And these people are generally very enthusiastic about NOAA and will step forward to perhaps look at a pilot or an implementation. Certainly in the line of business or for the major enterprise apps, there are often other education directors, vice presidents, and managers that are critical. And because the technology has so much benefit in other areas, the CIO is always a great lead-in to provide visibility to the benefits of the technology. So all these people can help move you forward. The economic benefit is a wonderful incidental outcome. And so you'll look at the technology and you'll say, I've got to have this, I need it, I've never seen the data before, but it's not in your budget, what do you do? And the technology brings with it a strong return on investment business case that you can use to create enthusiasm in your organization. Now, we're showing a lot of different areas in here beyond just training. The natural outcropping of training is certainly IT help desk, service desk, because now when someone calls the service desk people can know exactly what errors were they looking at in that window of time. It's no longer mystery. So beyond that change training, you have a lot of other ROI areas you can start to impact. But just for training, just for a large organization, look at the benefit, maybe $500,000 a year, or so. And we have many, many detailed customer analyses like this that show you the potential benefits. So the economic incentive to improve your training process, drive user satisfaction to a better place, and benefit your organization's overall performance is really strong. It really makes the project worthwhile for you to get behind it and see where you can go. And these kinds of analysis have been done many, many times by large corporations. So we have the sort of supporting material that, a CFO will find acceptable or a line of business executive will find acceptable to build out a use case, but a lot of detailed information we can share. A success story, perhaps just one to highlight, is Rockwell Collins. And Rockwell Collins is a great success story because they were purists. They went after targeted training and said, this is where we need to impact our organization out the chute. And as a leader in aerospace with billions in revenue, many thousands of employees, they had over 5,000 employees using technology such as SAP, and they used NOAA EPM technology to now better target the user needs, to minimize onboarding time, to understand more about user adoption, and overall to increase effectiveness and reduce costs. This is a great example of a success story in training where they've probably saved over time millions of dollars in their deployment and have increased the effectiveness of their organization. In terms of next steps, we're certainly going to show you the demo, but it's really quite simple. If you have a champion on your education or training teams, we'll spend a few hours to help see the fit for big applications like mission critical ERP and CRM. These are the places where you have thousands of seats. This is typically so easy to build a business case. You have 3,000 users, boy, you're going to save a lot of money with this technology and it's going to provide compelling value. So we'll look at how to build out that ROI. We'll talk about things like proof of concept, prove the technology, prove that it works for you, and then move to production. Now, one question today, we're not going to have Q&A, but it comes up like clockwork. The question always is, well, it might take me a year to implement this. And the answer is that it shouldn't. Because this technology is desktop-based, it's agent-based, you should be able to move to production for targeted training in perhaps 6 to 8 weeks. And that won't be a rush. That'll be fairly, well planned and at a very acceptable pace for the organization. We do not plug into your back-end Siebel, SAP, Salesforce systems. We are at the desktop an agent that you have to push down, very teeny footprint, and we see all the performance there. We've done this in some of the largest accounts of the world. It's proven technology, so your ability to leverage this to start saving money rapidly should be almost instantaneous. With that, I'm going to acknowledge the trademarks of vendors we spoke about today, and I'm going to turn the session over to Ilya Epstein, our Global Director of Sales Engineering.
Thank you, Mike. That was excellent. So today we're going to talk about how a NOAA solution can be used in the training area. The first place we're going to talk about is the ability, with the help of NOAA, to be able to develop a true targeted training program. The uniqueness of the NOAA solution is that we're able to capture 100% of all user errors across all of your major enterprise applications. Whether it's a thick client-based solution such as SAP ERP, whether it's a web application like SAP CRM or Siebel CRM or Salesforce.com, the uniqueness of the NOAA agent-based technology is that we capture 100% of the user errors that are being executed by real users, not robotic scripts, but real users as they're executing within any given process. What's unique about the NOAA solution is that the user errors that we're capturing, they're not predefined, they're not pre-scripted, it's 100% dynamic. So any user error that the end user gets from the target application is captured. Now, because we're using an agent-based technology, we can actually break down these user errors by the specific modules or the specific areas of the application where the end users are struggling. So, for example, here you can see top transactions or top screens within all of your applications that the users have the highest number of errors. So, for example, here the account screen within Siebel CRM, you can clearly see that there is a high degree of user error. You can also see a distribution of these errors by the various user attributes. Now, these user attributes can be imported from your HR system, for example. It can also be imported from Active Directory. And what this does is it provides a new level automatic actionable analytics that help you pinpoint the pockets of opportunity for training. So, for example, instead of using the old traditional method of simply assigning coursework to users based on their role, you can actually target it based on the different sites that the users are operating in, the different department, the role, the years that they're working within the application, and so forth. And what this allows you is to really find those opportunities for targeted training. And this is the approach that Rocco Collins took. They understood that if they do it in a traditional role-based approach, they simply would not be able to account for the high turnover rates that they were experiencing. But using the NOAA solution, they were able to very quickly identify pockets of opportunity, those users that need training as opposed to those users that do not. For example, if I want to break it down by a location, I can see that most of my errors are actually happening in Chicago. And in that location, it's not all users, it's actually primarily one or two users that are having the highest number of errors. So I could create targeted training content. I could create a lunch and learn program. I could use various self-help content tools to be able to actually create a training material that will allow the user to eliminate some of these user errors. The same thing if we look at a different location. We see a pattern once again. We can see pockets of opportunities or the users that could benefit from a targeted training program. And all of this, what this does is it creates the ability to increase your ROI in every dollar that you spend in training. Now, in addition to looking at these user errors from a screen or a transaction perspective, you could also look at it from a message capacity to create different types of categories of errors. So depending on the type of an issue, you could have a targeted training program for that specific topic or that specific issue. Now, in addition to these high-level analytics, NOAA also provides you a really robust drill-down capability. So, for example, a lot of times when you're trying to help the end user and you're trying to create better training content, you really need to understand what the user is doing. What is his workflow? What are the specific steps that he has taken within that application? With a NOAA solution from these detailed dashboards, I could drill down to detailed reports, which provides me a lot of the context that is needed to be able to really address the specific issue. And then from there, which by the way, here you can actually see the exact error message that the user is getting. And then from here, if I want to go to what's called the workflow, that gives you an unparalleled view as to all the steps the user took to get to that specific error message. So from the moment they logged in, every screen that they have touched, every operation that they have clicked in, until they have gotten that error, is recorded. So if the user is deviating from a predefined process, and that is the reason why he's getting that permission error, because he's selecting an invalid report or an invalid option in a selection screen, that is all captured. So you could pinpoint that training opportunity, you could create the training content based on this workflow, you could even record a self-help content, maybe 1 minute, maybe 30 seconds, that is able to enable the user not to repeat this issue going forward. Another area that I want to take a look at is the ability to look at the NOAA metrics from a business process perspective. Because when you're looking at training and training opportunities, a lot of times you want to take into account the business impact of a specific area that you're trying to focus in. Your ROI dollars in training could be better spent if you are tackling strategic business processes that will have the biggest impact to business if they are improved. So with a NOAA solution, you have the ability to actually import business processes as they are defined in your system, which is basically a grouping of transactions, so that when we are looking at the user errors, we're not just looking at them in vacuum, but we actually have a very concrete view as to how, let's say, the user errors are impacting a critical financial process. So, for example, here in financial accounting, I can see an increase of user errors. Now, this increase of user errors is over a 2-week period. And this is something very interesting. This is another unique capability of NOAA that Mike talked about, and that is the ability to do trend analysis. Because the NOAA solution is monitoring all these users all the time, I actually have the ability to plan, and see all of the user errors as they are trending over a period. So this could be a before training, an after training scenario. It could be a before and after a rollout. Or if you've made any modifications to a business process and you want to see the impact of that modification to the efficiencies of the users, you could do that with this type of dashboard. So here, for example, I can very quickly see that financial accounting over a 2-week period has had an increase in user errors. I could drill down to a more detailed dashboard that actually breaks down financial accounting into the different components that make up that process, and actually zero in on the user errors within that process, and actually take remediation steps for that specific transaction, that specific screen that is having the poor user performance. So here, for example, if we look at financial accounting, we can very quickly see that although most of the time that the users are spending are within this transaction, FBL by then, but the highest number of errors are actually happening in F22. So if we look at it from a before NOAA and after NOAA perspective, if you're using a traditional training methodology, you would probably spend a lot of time training a lot of users on aspects of financial accounting where they're doing fine. They don't need any help. They're actually doing well in terms of the KPIs. But with a NOAA solution, you're actually able to pinpoint that most of the user errors are happening the overall business. As Mike talked about, there's a lot of other use cases, not just training. User support and functional support is an extension of a solid user sustainment program. And there's other use cases in technical operations and business process operations as well. There'll be additional webinars covering those topics, and please feel free to reach out to us if you want to have a more in-depth demo on any one of these topics. Thank you, Mike. I'm going to pass it back to you.
Well, thank you, Ilya. That was an excellent presentation, and thank you to our audience for attending our lightweight webinar today. Please email us for more information at sales@noaa.com, or go to our website and you'll find white papers on targeted training specific to SAP, Siebel, PeopleSoft, and Salesforce. So depending on what you need to cover, we have very specific white papers that talk about the technology, show you some of the screenshots, and talk about the return on investment analysis. We'll look forward to speaking with you soon and hopefully making you a customer. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day. Bye-bye.